Hi, this is Arizona estate planning attorney Richard Keyt. My son and I, Richard C. Keyt, who's also an Arizona estate planning attorney, we prepare wills and trusts and estate plans for our clients because we want them to protect their most valuable assets, their loved ones. So what I'm going to do now is show you the contents of our estate plan when somebody hires us to prepare an estate plan with a revocable living trust. In front of me, I have our estate planning portfolio, which I'm going to go through. The first thing that we ask our clients to do is to prepare our estate planning questionnaire. It's an online form that asks all the questions that we need answers to in order to prepare an estate plan that's customized for each person's need. So you can fill it out online, click the submit button. Our system will send an email to you and to us that has all the information that you've entered in the questionnaire. Questionnaire contains information about you and your loved ones. For example, it wants to know your names, if you're married, spouses' names, names of children, birth dates. Who do you want to inherit? Is there anybody you want to disinherit? Who do you want to be the successor trustees of your trust if both you and your spouse die if you're married? So all the information that we need to prepare a custom estate plan, the questions are answered in that questionnaire, and then based on the information and answers you give us, we're going to prepare custom estate planning documents to do exactly what you want. One of the important documents that we have you complete is called an asset list. And this is important not so much for us. In fact, you don't even need to give us a copy of it, but we have an online database system where you can enter all of your information about your assets, whether they're LLCs, corporations, investment accounts, Merrill Lynch, E-Trade, bank accounts, real estate, whatever you own, you can enter it into our asset list. And then you can download an Excel spreadsheet that has all of your assets. Now, the purpose of the Excel spreadsheet is not to give to us. We don't need to know what you own and where it is unless you hire us to fund your trust. But the purpose of the asset spreadsheet that you can download is you can give that to your loved ones, so the people you want to know what you own if you were to die. Because think of it this way. If you died today, would your loved ones know everything you own and where to find it? Because if they don't know everything you own and where to find the assets, they're not going to get those assets. So it's important that you have something in writing that you can give to the appropriate people, so the appropriate people will know what you own and where to find it. So if you die, they can make sure that those assets go where you want those assets to go. If you hire us to prepare your estate plan with a revocable living trust, you're going to get this red portfolio that contains all of your estate planning documents. So here in the beginning, you can see we did this for Homer and Marge Simpson. Unfortunately, they didn't pay us, so we still have their book. But the first tab is called Table of Contents. And the items in left in bold correspond to the tabs on the right. And then the right column explains what's found behind each tab. So the next tab is called Introduction. Then we go to Estate Plan Summary. And here it gives you a textual summary of your estate plan. And it also gives you a picture of the estate plan for husband and wife. So here we have Homer on one side and Marge on the other, but it shows who each of them have picked for their different agents. So the primary documents are the living will. That's a document that says that if you're being kept alive by a machine, you want the doctors to pull the plug so the medical bills don't keep going up. Then the next document is your healthcare and mental health care power of attorney. And that's where you name one or more people to make medical decisions for you if you can't. So if you're in a coma where the doctor wants to know, do I operate or not operate? The doctor's going to ask the first person named on your healthcare power, do I operate or not operate? Now, the next document is a HIPAA authorization. And that's a document where you're going to give access to your healthcare agents to your information from the doctors. Because there's a federal law called HIPAA that says the doctors just can't give out information about patients. They can only give information to authorized people. And your HIPAA authorization gives your agents the right to get information about you from the doctors. Now, next we have a financial power of attorney. And that's a document where you name one or more people to deal with your financial affairs if you become incapacitated. So if you're in a coma, you can't write a check on your checking account, but the person named first in line on your financial power of attorney can deal with your financial affairs the same way that you can. Now, that power of attorney only deals with assets that are not in your trust, because assets that are in your trust can be managed by your successor trustee. So husband and wife are trustee and one of the spouses loses mental capacity. The other spouse can continue to deal with all the assets inside the trust because that person is a trustee. Now, if there's only one trustee and that person loses their mental capacity, the successor trustee can take over and deal with all the assets that are in the trust. But the financial power of attorney is only there if the trustee loses mental capacity and there's no other trustee. Then it names somebody who can deal with the assets that are not inside the trust. Now, next we have a postmortem wishes. This is a document that's not legally binding, but some of our clients fill it out, some don't. But it's where you can tell your family what you want to happen if you were to die. Do you want to be cremated? Do you have a burial plot? Do you want certain scriptures read? Do you want certain music played? You name your pallbearers. You can even write your own obituary and tell the family what newspaper to put it in. Now, next we have the will, sometimes known as the last will and testament. But when we do a trust, the only purpose of the will is it says that if you were to die and any of your assets remain in your name after death, if a probate's necessary, then the only thing that happens in the probate is the assets that were in your name after death get transferred into your trust. Trust then is your primary document. Now, when people are married, there'll be a diagram here that shows potentially 1, 2, or 3 trusts. And that's something that we'll get into later. But right now, what you need to know is that if a married couple dies, then there's something that's going to happen to the estate or to the trust. There's either going to be one trust that the surviving trustee has total control over, or there may be 2 trusts or 3 trusts. We can talk about that at another time. But then we'll also give you a picture of what happens on the death of the second spouse or on the death of the first spouse who's single. And it'll show how many people have been named as beneficiaries and who they are and what they get. Now, next we have a tab called nominations. And here it shows who's you named for each of your different agents. So it has the same information on that graph we showed earlier, except it's in text format, not picture format. Next, you have your trust. And one thing you'll notice is when you turn a tab, the first thing behind the tab is an explanation of the document behind the tab. So here's your trust agreement, and it's actually very easy to read. It's not too much legalese, so we do invite you to read it. The next tab is called Certification of Trust, and this is a document you'll use more than most of the others because sometimes third parties will ask you for a copy of your trust, but you never want to give them your trust because it has confidential information. But they'll be happy if you give them this document called Certification of Trust, because the Certification of Trust tells these third parties what they want to know. They want to know what's the legal name of the trust, what's the date of the trust agreement, who are the current trustees, and what are the powers of the current trustees. And all that information is contained in your certification of trust. Next, we go to funding your trust. Funding is a word that means transferring assets to your trust. So after you sign your trust, you need to transfer the assets. Now, this is an article called Funding Your Trust from A to Z. So it goes into great detail and tells you how you transfer different types of assets. So you just look for the type of asset. Here's investment accounts, incentive stock options, regular stock, bonds, personal items. Just look for the type of asset, and then it'll tell you how you transfer those assets into your trust. Now, next is trust ID, next is trust assets. So behind the Trust Assets tab is an asset list. Now we're going to give you an asset list and you can fill it out. It's optional whether you fill it out or you don't fill it out, but we do recommend that you do your asset list because you need to tell your loved ones what you own and where to find it. Next is your last will and testament. And this is the document that only has one purpose, and that's to say that if you die and any assets remain in your name, then your personal representative named in your will do a probate, and the only thing that happens in the probate is the asset gets transferred into the trust. So next we have a document called Personal Property Memorandum. And this is a document where you can make gifts of personal items to a specific person. So if you have a ring that you want to go to a specific person, you can describe the item of personal property in the left column, and then in the right column, name the person who you want to get that item if you die. So that means if you die, that ring is going to go to the person that you've named here. So this is a great way to make gifts, especially important when you have children. One of the common things that children fight over is personal items. You know, one child will say, Mom said I get this ring, and the other one says, no, Mom said I get it, and then they fight over the ring. But when you have the gifts named in the personal property memorandum and you give it to the kids, then there's no question. The kids know exactly what Mom and Dad wanted to give to each of them, and so there shouldn't be any fighting amongst them. Next, we have death or incapacity checklist. And this is a checklist that if one of you were to die, if you're married and one of you were to die and become incapacitated, the survivor would look at the death or incapacity checklist. And also, if you're a single trustee and you die, then you want your successor trustee to have access to the death or incapacity checklist. The financial power of attorney, this is where you name somebody to deal with your financial affairs if you lose your mental capacity. But it only deals with assets that are not in the trust. Here's your healthcare power of attorney, your HIPAA authorization, your healthcare power of attorney for minors. If you have minor children, then we can do a healthcare power of attorney for minors. But if you don't have any minors, then this is irrelevant. And your living will is here. This is the document that says you don't want to be kept alive by a machine if you're brain dead. Your DocuBank. We buy you a 5-year membership in this organization called DocuBank, and they give you a little membership card. It looks like this, and you can carry it in your purse or your wallet. But it tells doctors if you're in an accident and you're in the hospital in Los Angeles, it'll tell the doctors the name and phone number of your contact person. Also tells the doctors they can contact DocuBank 24/7, and DocuBank will fax to the doctors your healthcare power of attorney, your living will, and your HIPAA authorization, because the doctors need that. It's not helpful if your documents are in your red portfolio in the closet at home and you're in the hospital in Los Angeles. Postmortem wishes. This is an optional document. Life insurance. If you do have life insurance, you want to make sure your loved ones know what you have and where to find it. So I just gave you a quick summary of all the documents that we provide when people hire us to prepare an estate plan. All of our clients get the red portfolio with all the documents that are shown in here that I just described for you.